April 1945. Berlin was collapsing. Soviet artillery thundered across the city as the Third Reich crumbled into dust. Deep beneath the ruins, in a concrete bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery, Adolf Hitler waited for the end. The official story tells us that on April 30th, 1945, Hitler took his own life alongside his wife, Eva Braun. Their bodies were burned in the garden above the bunker as Soviet troops closed in. Case closed. But what if the story didn't end there? What if Adolf Hitler didn't die in Berlin at all? What if the most hunted man in the world escaped and vanished into South America? Tonight, we explore one of the most controversial mysteries of the 20th century. The theory that Hitler escaped Nazi Germany and lived out the rest of his life in Argentina. Was it a wild conspiracy? Or could it have actually happened? By the spring of 1945, the war in Europe was over. Allied forces were closing in from every direction. American and British armies pushed from the west, while the Soviet Red Army smashed through Germany from the east. Berlin became the final battlefield. Inside his underground bunker, Hitler refused to surrender. Witnesses later described him as physically weakened and emotionally unstable. His empire was collapsing, but he remained determined to stay in Berlin until the end. On April 29th, he married Eva Braun in a brief ceremony inside the bunker. The following day, according to official accounts, Hitler shot himself while Braun swallowed cyanide. Their bodies were taken outside, doused with gasoline, and burned. When Soviet troops reached the bunker days later, they recovered charred remains believed to belong to Hitler. But the evidence was incomplete, and confusion quickly followed. The Soviet Union conducted the first investigation into Hitler's death. Yet strangely, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin initially told Allied officials that Hitler might still be alive. At various times, Stalin suggested Hitler had escaped to Spain, or even to Argentina. This claim shocked Western intelligence agencies. If the Soviets themselves were uncertain, could Hitler have slipped away during the chaos of Berlin's collapse? The uncertainty fueled rumors across Europe, and those rumors would soon grow into something much larger. After World War II, thousands of Nazi officials disappeared. Many escaped through secret networks known as ratlines. These escape routes helped former SS officers and war criminals flee Europe using forged documents and hidden transport routes. One of the main destinations was Argentina. At the time, Argentina was governed by President Juan Perón, who allowed many European immigrants to settle there. Among those who arrived were notorious Nazi figures such as Adolf Eichmann and Joseph Mengele. Both men successfully hid in South America for years. Their escape proved something important. Even high-ranking Nazis could disappear, which raised a disturbing possibility. If Eichmann and Mengele escaped, could Hitler have done the same? One of the most famous escape theories involves German submarines. In July 1945, months after the war had ended, 2 German U-boats appeared unexpectedly in Argentina. The submarines U-530 and U-977 surrendered to Argentine authorities after long voyages across the Atlantic. Their arrival immediately triggered speculation. Why had they traveled so far after Germany had already surrendered? Some believed the submarines had secretly transported Nazi leaders to South America. Others claimed Adolf Hitler himself had been aboard one of them. The crews were interrogated by American and Argentine investigators. They denied carrying any passengers and insisted they had simply fled Europe to avoid capture. No evidence linked Hitler to the submarines. But the mystery kept the rumors alive. The most dramatic stories place Hitler in Patagonia. Remote regions of southern Argentina are sparsely populated and surrounded by mountains and lakes. Some witnesses claimed that high-ranking Nazis established secret communities there. Rumors spread about a hidden estate where Hitler supposedly lived under a false identity. According to these stories, he arrived in Argentina in 1945 and lived quietly for many years. Some accounts even claimed he died there in the 1960s. But historians point out a major problem. None of these claims have been supported by reliable documentation. Most come from second-hand reports, anonymous witnesses, or sensational books. Still, The stories continue to circulate. For decades, the FBI received tips suggesting Hitler might be alive. Informants reported sightings in Argentina, Chile, and even Colombia. One report claimed a man resembling Hitler lived in a remote mountain village. Another suggested a secret Nazi compound deep in the Andes. The FBI investigated many of these claims, but none produced credible evidence. Most reports were dismissed as rumors, hoaxes, or mistaken identity. Yet when the FBI files were declassified decades later, conspiracy theories exploded once again. People wondered whether the government had hidden the truth. Modern forensic analysis tells a very different story. Soviet investigators preserved fragments of Hitler's jaw and teeth recovered from the bunker. These dental remains were compared with Hitler's dental records and identified by his own dentist assistants. Decades later, forensic experts confirmed the match. The dental evidence strongly supports the conclusion that Hitler died in Berlin in April 1945. While many mysteries surround the final days of the war, historians overwhelmingly agree on one point. Adolf Hitler did not escape. Despite the evidence, the myth of Hitler's escape continues to fascinate people around the world. Perhaps it is because history's villains rarely seem to vanish so easily. Or perhaps it is because mysteries refuse to die. But the most likely truth is far less dramatic. In the final days of the Third Reich, Adolf Hitler died beneath the ruins of Berlin as the empire he built collapsed around him. Yet the legend of his escape lives on. And for some, the question will always remain. What if the most wanted man in history slipped away into the shadows? And what if the world never knew? If you enjoyed this historical mystery, make sure to subscribe for more untold stories from